beautiful souls. It's Robin, and you're listening to the Live Life Balance podcast. I'm so excited that you dropped by today, prioritizing you and your wellness. This podcast is for my empty nester mamas, women who are getting close to this new chapter, who have dipped one toe in, or who are fully embracing this new phase. This is for the mamas who are ready to take back their health, to live their best lives. If you're looking for an authentic, supportive community, you're definitely in the right place. It's a space for us to learn how to prioritize ourselves again. I'll be your guide, pointing you to ideas and tools that you can experiment with to see what feels good for you. You'll also hear guests talking about their journeys and what's worked for them. Together, we're going to learn how to use the 1% shift method to create little shifts and habits that, who knows, maybe become your non-negotiables to feel your best. By feeling our best, we can show up in our purpose and live the most joyful life, even in the challenging times. And boy, this new chapter can seem challenging, but I can assure you we're not alone. Some of the topics we're going to talk about are self-love, self-care, nutrition, daily toxins, food swaps, mindset, and reframing our thoughts. I hope you leave each time feeling a little more empowered and at ease to take a step or two that will allow you to shine. Are you ready? If you said yes, take a nice deep breath and say, I am ready. Now let's get into it. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. I am super excited to have on Dr. Jennifer Harris. For over a decade, she's had the experience of treating people with acupuncture, herbal medicine, and nutrition. She specializes in women's health. She's passionate about educating women on their health care options. When she's not working, she also enjoys spending time at home, relaxing with her beautiful daughter and their small zoo. She is from New Mexico, and our conversation was very interesting, and I loved all the different places that it took us authentically, and I think you're going to get a lot out of this episode. So with no further ado, let's get into it. Hi, and welcome, Jennifer. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Just if you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became an acupuncturist.
Yeah, absolutely. I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I've been here most of my life. I was actually a nurse before going into Eastern medicine, and I had some of my own health issues arise, and went and saw multiple doctors, got multiple opinions, and everyone said, "You're fine. You're young. Your blood work looks good. Don't worry about it." So, um, I had no intention of trying acupuncture, but it was one of those things, when somebody says, like, have you tried yoga? Yoga would fix that. Try yoga. So people started saying over and over, have you tried acupuncture? And I finally thought, oh my God, if this will get everyone to just get off my back about it, fine, I'll go try some acupuncture. So I went in for one session. It was very relaxing. I did not think it was going to help me with any of my issues, but I thought, well, it wasn't a waste of money. I feel really calm, really nice, and it was a better experience than I anticipated, because no one really likes the idea of needles. But yeah, the next morning, my issues were completely resolved. So I just got really excited about it and had to know more.
That's awesome. I love how, you went in with one kind of mindset, but you came out with something totally different. And I think, had those people not bugged you or had those people not repeated the same thing, it might have been something that you would have missed. And I do hear, and it resonates a lot with me about going to certain doctors to try to have them help you with something that because you don't feel good and you get that answer, oh, your blood work's fine. Okay, well, my blood work is fine, but I still don't feel good. Like I still have zero energy. I'm still like wanting to sleep all the time. I'm still, whatever. I still have aches and pain. Like there's certain things that are still happening. So if my blood work is right, and my thyroid, all my numbers are good, why do I still feel this way? And so I
Right.
think when you go to Eastern medicine, they're functional and integrative. They're looking for root causes. But I'm very curious about acupuncture because um, I have had it a couple of times. My daughters have had it a couple of times. And I will say for my daughters with their menstruation, when they had like really bad cramps, when we went to visit the acupuncturist, I didn't understand really what she was talking about, but we were like going to give anything a try at that point. And it, whatever she did to reset whatever, you know, for three or 4 months, it was beautiful sailing, you know. And so it's not a one time fix all type of thing, but it does help to alleviate. So could you talk about how acupuncture actually works?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are many different styles of acupuncture. Just over time and in different regions of the world, things kind of, you know, people would learn by apprenticeship. And so a lineage would develop a certain way and a different lineage would develop a different way. So I study a type of acupuncture called Toyohari. It's a Japanese style of acupuncture. And I think the goal with any acupuncture treatment is to try to find balance or bring balance back to the pulse. So what I mean by that is there are 12 primary channels that, well, let me start over. The 12 primary channels are the ones with the points on them. So they're the ones that we use the most often, but there are extra vessels that we also can access through different points on the primary channels. So when we're checking the pulse, everyone just thinks, oh, you know, my pulse is typically pretty slow, and they love to guess for me. They'll be like, I'd say 68. 68. I'm like, oh, I'm not actually taking the rate of your pulse. I can tell very quickly if someone's pulse is slightly rapid, extremely rapid, very slow. I mean, that is something to note. But what we're really doing is we're checking on each hand. There are 3 positions. Sorry, my table moves. So I'm moving. Okay. There are 3 positions, and there's going to be a superficial pulse and then a deeper pulse. So you've got 6 pulses that you're checking for on each wrist. So on the right hand, I'm checking lung, and its paired yang partner would be large intestine. Then we say spleen. We often mean spleen, but we also mean pancreas most of the time with that. And then its yang partner is stomach. And then in the Japanese style, we have Sanjiao. That means triple burner. So it's basically, to me, very much like the endocrine system. It's connecting the upper, middle, and lower parts of your core, but it's responsible for regulating temperature. It's responsible for um, mm, it's a part of Shaoyang, which is kind of complicated to understand, but basically it's this pivot. So when something exterior is coming into the body, you have things that are more external, you have things in the body that are more internal. That is going to be kind of what's in the middle. So if someone's getting sick, we want to try to catch it and expel what other pathogen or whatnot before it gets too internal in the body. Um, I don't know. I think COVID was kind of a wild example of just how quickly something can move through different stages and different symptoms, you know, arise for different people that have the same strain, but it went very internal very quickly, right? So on the other wrist, we have basically heart, which is oddly enough linked with small intestine. Then we have liver, gallbladder. That makes a little bit more sense, and kidney and urinary bladder. So what I'm looking for is the relative difference in strength. Everybody's going to have a constitutional weakness. The seasons can factor into whether you're feeling good or not. One thing we're seeing a lot right now is a lot of depression, a lot of people getting into funks this time of year. And what's interesting about that is it's either coming from too much energy getting dammed up and stagnating in lung and large intestine, or it's often coming from too little energy. So as we move into the fall season, when it gets cooler and drier, that's when the energy naturally starts to increase in lung for everyone, right? Just because lung system is linked with the fall, and we can access that energy most easily this time of year. If people tend to be very deficient, so They get colds frequently and easily. They might have allergies. They might just tend towards kind of a depressed or, apathetic or overwhelmed kind of reaction to stress, right? Skin conditions can be from excess or deficiency in that system. And then, of course, actual issues with the colon, right? If they tend to not have enough energy in that system and that's their norm, then they should start feeling really good this time of year. And it's a great time of year to work on stuff like that. If they actually tend to have more congestion in that system, then most likely they have deficiency in liver system. So we're just constantly looking for how to move it from where it's stagnating. Pain is always a stagnation, tightness is a stagnation, you know, like with menstruation, clotting, like you're seeing stagnation, right? So we're constantly trying to move that and then redirect it back to where you're more deficient and get it to kind of hold there. And that's what's really cool about this medicine, because in doing that, all of your symptoms should start to get better. Symptoms you're not even worried about, right? Like, I'm not here for my sleep. Doesn't matter. We're trying to bring balance to everything. So
That's a couple of things you said that are really standing out to me is balance, right? It's balancing all your systems, homeostasis. It's getting back to where everything is functioning the way it should be functioning, and that is truly bringing balance back to those areas. Constitution was something that stood out to me. Could you explain a little bit to others what constitution actually means?
oh yeah, how do I explain that? That's a good question. So I think nowadays it's a little harder to just spot. At one point in time, they thought that you could just see someone and you could tell based on their stature, the size of their frame. For me, I have very rosy cheeks. I've always had rosy cheeks, right? Red cheeks in Chinese medicine is too much heat in the heart system. And when we say heat, we mean like inflammation, but I'm very much like a heart or fire kind of person. So your constitution is your norm in terms of how you typically present. One thing that we will find when we work with people, I see it all the time, is that you will have oftentimes excess building up in the system that is most efficient. Like when we talk about spleen or pancreas, if that system's weak, basically your metabolism's sluggish, right? So for a lot of people, that can lead to weight, right? Weight gain. That would be a sign of excess, happening because the system's deficient. So sometimes we're just clearing away kind of layers at first and clearing out the excess, but pretty quickly we will see the root or kind of the constitutional pulse. So
Okay, so in my schooling, constitutional, the reason I brought that up because I just find it fascinating, but it's kind of who you are and what you're born with and your makeup. Basically, it's things that are not necessarily in your full control. That doesn't
right,
mean that there's like a death sentence to it. It just means this is kind of the way that you were put together, and so those are things that you might deal with that somebody else doesn't deal with, but it doesn't make it right, wrong. It's just your makeup basically. But I love what you said
right,
about the metabolism being linked to a specific area in the body, because again, people think, oh, I'm getting older, my metabolism's slowing down. It's like, no, your metabolism's slowing down because you have an imbalance somewhere in your body, whether it's hormonal, whether it's with, I think you said spleen or liver, things. There are certain things that are causing it. And again, in Western society, we don't really look for those root causes. We just give it an age slap. It's like, well, you're going through menopause and, you're, you're this age. And so these are the things that are just going to happen. And we've just learned to accept that. And I just find that one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast, one of the reasons I wanted to become an integrative nutrition health coach is because we need to advocate for ourselves. We need to dig deeper. We don't need to, back, I don't know, when my mom grew up, it's like you went to one doctor for your whole life and whatever they said was gold and you just took it and you went with it. And that's not how it is. And so we now have choices. We've always had choices, but we now more than ever have a lot of choices. And the Eastern side is coming out a little bit more if you just do a little bit of searching. So I encourage anybody who's even well or not feeling 100% to start looking into potential, like acupuncture, because it's not a surgery, it's not a pill, it's not a quick fix, but it is something that, you might find benefit from. And, that also goes with different types of massages and things like that. So if you're listening and you're someone who's not feeling 100%, this might be something for you to try, and see what results you get. And I promise you, I think you will find a good result, in just dabbling in a little bit of acupuncture. Now, there is something, and I don't know if you're familiar with this, but prior to actually using needles, because I was a little bit nervous of needles, just in general, but a long time ago when my daughter was really young, we went to a chiropractor who did needleless acupuncture. It was like a little wanding gun type thing. She was like 18 months at the time. So that worked, for her. And so when I went to my first acupuncturist myself, I was hesitant with the needles. And she said, well, I can just set it, whatever she was doing. She's like, I can set it without using it. And then the next time I went and I got braver. And it was a very interesting experience because where the needle, it doesn't hurt. Some of them you get a feeling. And again, it's not pain. It's just like a weird tingle sort of. But while I sat there with the needles in, there was like one spot that I could feel, again, it wasn't painful, but I definitely felt. And so when she came back, I said, what is that? Like, why am I feeling it here? And it was linked to a particular organ, which was my liver. And so I just found that to be really interesting, that was something she had said was kind of blocked, right? And then that's where I was feeling it. Now, she didn't tell me that prior to me feeling. It was just kind of one of those not random, but things that came up that helped me to better link what was happening. So I think, again, the education of acupuncture and having people understand that the 12 points are linked to different organs within your body. Is that correct?
Yeah, the 12 meridians or the 12
Meridians. Thank you.
pathways that we think, everything flows through. Was it the point on the top of your foot between your big toe and your second toe? Liver 3, gotta love that one.
Yeah.
That is the Harari point, meaning it's the source point, which I think is fascinating. Liver links to the wood element, and there are 5 elements, and every channel will have 5 points that are one is linked to each one. So it's the wood point on the wood element, which makes it really powerful. But what I think is cool about liver is it handles all kinds of stress, any kind of stress. So environmental toxins, your awful coworker, like whatever, right? It's going to take on that stress for you. So it tends to be a really active point and a very active channel for most people, just because I think we run kind of chronically stressed nowadays, And the thing that's heartbreaking about that is I know we're giving that more and more attention, like how important it is to manage stress and address it before it gets too out of control. But the body really doesn't know the difference between if you're being chased by a lion or, if there is war or famine or whatever else, or if you're just chronically like tired and stressed out and overworked. So it starts to kind of shut down certain things. And one of the things I see with fertility and with fertility struggles, so often it's just stress. And people are like, it can't be just stress. I have unexplained infertility. We've done a million tests. I've been trying for 2 years, and then like 2 or 3 months later, they are pregnant. Like, yeah, the chemicals that are being released, your pH, everything changes when you're stressed out to prevent you from conceiving, because your body thinks this is not the right time or place to bring a child into the world. And we're so used to it that we don't even realize how stressed we are anymore. So if nothing else, acupuncture is extremely relaxing, and it's a really, really great tool for helping people manage their stress.
Anybody who listens to me, anybody who's worked with me, anybody who follows me on social media, anybody that's in my podcast, private group, self-care, stress management. I mean, it is so important. And if acupuncture can help with that, then I'm even more for it. If that's something that it actually can do, because you're right, our body cannot delineate between something that's happened 10 years ago, something that you're being chased by now. And we don't take enough time to stop and breathe and be present and work through those emotions so that we're not storing them all the time. And people say to me, how do I manage stress? It's like, well, you have to kind of look at your day, right? And look at your life and look at the things you have in place. What things are serving you? What things are not serving you? What things can you drop from your plate? What things can you not, but how can you work with it and reframe the way you think about it? Because that's so important. Because, and I always go back to, like, if you and I were in the same situation, how you perceive something and deal with it is very different than how I might perceive it and deal with it. And I might hold on to something a lot longer, not even knowing it, because like you said, somebody's aggravating you, and it's like you just live with it and you don't even know that it's happening. And so anybody listening, if you feel that extra stress, if you feel overwhelmed, acupuncture definitely seems like something, you might want to investigate and try out for yourself to see if it helps with whatever you have going on, to help you manage and, again, bring your body back to a more of a homeostasis balance so that it can deal with things in a way that it doesn't affect you as much, and helps you work through things. So another thing that I find interesting that I don't know a lot about is Chinese, like, herbs, because there's medication and then there's supplements, and I don't know if this is the same for Chinese medicine, but or Chinese herbs. Is medication, to me, just is needed if you have an infection, is needed if you have something acute, or life threatening or something like that. Supplements can be beneficial to a certain degree if you're deficient in something, as long as you know why you're deficient. If you still got to get to the root cause. If your vitamin D is down, why is it down? You can supplement, but it's not going to cure it. You don't want to be on vitamin D. I'm just using vitamin D as an example, but a high dosage for your whole life, because you can't maintain. So it's like finding that root cause of why something's out of balance, taking that or supplement to help yourself, naturally work through that and then come back up to where you can produce it yourself. So how does Chinese herbs work?
Yeah, so we never want anyone to be taking the same formula for forever.
Right.
You should use it until you're better because you used it and did all the other things, right? But if you have the correct diagnosis, there is an herbal formula for that. So I like how you keep going back to this idea that we want to start with the less invasive option. And for that reason, I do always prefer to start with acupuncture, because you're really not going to mess anybody up with it unless you just do something, negligent. It's unheard of that you would hurt someone with acupuncture. As far as herbal medicine goes, there are formulas that are so powerful, so warming, so whatever, that if you gave someone a formula that was, contraindicated for their constitution, for how they're presenting, you can really mess somebody up with herbs. So I really like seeing an herbal practitioner, even when I'm just needing herbs myself. It's amazing how easy it is for me to diagnose someone else. But if I have to diagnose myself, I start doing that Dr. Google thing. And the next thing you know, I'm like, I think I need all of them. Like, no, you don't need all of them. But, there's hundreds of herbs. I think at one point in my loose herb formula inventory, we had probably 400 plus single herbs. One thing that's really amazing about Chinese medicine is we rarely give out single herbs. We use the herbs and we prepare them together so that they can bring out special qualities in each other, so they can moderate or temper qualities in the other herbs, so they can be absorbed better. So when people say like, well, I'm tired, what do you have for energy? Oh, fatigue is my least favorite symptom in the world, because it can be from too much stress, too little, it can be from literally anything. I can't just throw ginseng at it. Every now and then, a formula with ginseng in it is exactly what somebody needs. But more often than not, they need things to help move the chi and help with their stress, right? Or um, they might need things that clear excess, but also strengthen deficiency. So we would call that more of like a harmonizing formula, where it's doing a little bit of clearing, but also a little bit of building, right? Um, and if you have something acute, an infection, then yeah, we're just hitting that hard with a bunch of great antibacterial or antiviral herbs, whatever. But it's a wonderful, wonderful option. If someone is very sick, please go to the doctor. Please go to the doctor and be looked at. And, if you're taking antibiotics and they're not working well, one of the things you can consider is to incorporate herbal medicine with the antibiotics. That can really help. That to me is like 1 + 1 = 10 when you do that, because it just becomes so much more effective. But yeah, we should definitely be trying more natural ways to approach healing before pharmaceuticals or before surgeries. Surgery, in my opinion, should always be your last option, because it doesn't always work, and you can't undo that. And then you have layers of other things you have to address after the surgery, right? I don't understand why so many people don't have gallbladders. I'd like someone to explain to me why we haven't figured out a better way to address gallbladder flare-ups. But people think they don't need them. They're like, oh, it's okay, And if you're in a lot of pain, I understand going straight to the hospital. And if that's what they recommend, you're going to do that. But there are lots of ways to prevent losing the gallbladder, and it is so important. So I find all of this just wild. Like, you don't need your appendix, you don't need your tonsils. Like, our need for them has changed as we've evolved, definitely, but I also don't need incisions and scar tissue, and there's just so many things I don't need about surgery. So
Right, but I often think I agree, that surgery should be the last option, and sometimes it might be necessary, but like you said, nobody even investigates the other side of things when you're just going to a traditional doctor, because that's what they know, and it's not really negligence on their part, because that's what they've been taught. And so again, I think it's a revamping of our education system as a human and as a doctor, and whatever you're going into, there needs to be a little bit more thought that goes through what you're being trained on. Because I see so many people start over in the Western side and then gravitate towards, incorporating, if not moving fully over to the Eastern type of medicine, because they see after years and years of practice, they're not able to help their patients the way that they want to. And then something maybe with themselves, somehow they get exposed to something else. And then that, like you, tweaks your interest, and you've had a life experience with it. And now you're intrigued to learn more. And then you can see the benefits that it might have for your patients. And so that's where I see a lot of the transformations of people who have gone from one side to the other. And I'm not saying incorporating both isn't right either, because again, there are times for medication, there are times for surgery, but we have to go do our due diligence to see what else it could possibly be before that happens, in my opinion.
right.
And again, if you're someone listening and you're on the fence, maybe you have gallstones, or maybe you have, I don't know, tonsil, whatever, and there's an option for you to have surgery. We're not saying don't have it. We're just saying do a little bit of investigation and see what else is out there prior to, going under the knife, just because it isn't reversible. Once it's done, it's done. And there's always an effect. There's always an effect when you remove something out of your body, and it depends on, again, your constitution. It depends on what your lifestyle is, how it will really affect you later down the road. A lot of this is just to become curious and see what else is out there.
Well, and Western medicine is fantastic in a crisis, right?
Yes,
In an
100%.
emergent situation, thank God for it. But
Absolutely.
we are constantly like triaging an acute crisis with that medicine rather than preventing it from happening. So, with the supplement side of things, I think in traditionally with Chinese medicine, you would be getting the nutrients that you need from the herbal formulas. So we don't really hand out supplements the same way. I have a pretty strong background in nutrition and I love using supplements to help, like you said, temporarily. But I see people that, I mean, they will come in and show me 30 things that they're taking, and they take them every day of every season all year long. And to me, that's just wild. So I like to do a liver detox cleanse, just something gentle every spring because we link the liver with the spring, right? And it just feels like an appropriate time to kind of cleanse and get moving and start, being out more. In the summer, I will do things that are really good for heart health, right? And I end up doing more cardio just naturally in the summer. In the late summer, that's our fifth season. It's monsoon season when it's kind of hot and humid. That's a great time to take care of your gut health. That's a really good time to start taking some probiotics, kind of get ahead of the fall season when we all get hit with things. So start boosting the immune system then. Take really good care of your skin and take really good care to stay hydrated in the fall when it gets really dry, right? And then in the winter, rest more. You're supposed to slow down and rest more, not get so stressed out and busy with the holidays. But that's one thing that our kidneys and our adrenals really benefit is just a little extra sleep that time of year, right? So I will kind of take things seasonally, but we're talking like one or two things, and I don't take them all year round. And if I'm feeling good, I don't take anything at all. So when you start taking 20 pills a day, even if they're the healthiest, the best brands, everything's manufactured very cleanly, right? Like the best of the best, you're still going to really potentially dampen your metabolism and just stress out that system. And also, if you're trying to bring something into balance, you need to figure out what's not right and address that specific thing. So, like, I would never just needle points on all 12 of the channels
Right.
and go like it's like a Hail Mary pass. Like, well, if we just address all of them, something's got to work, right? Like, no, what are you telling the body? That's not a clear message at all. You
Right.
have to figure out what specifically needs to be looked at. And
Well, and I
so,
always look at that as, an unlayering process. You start with one area and you assist that one area with whatever. And then as that starts to come back into balance, something else might pop up, or maybe you just go to something different but sometimes when you address one area, it actually helps to fix or bring back into balance some of the other areas just by addressing the one. I wanted to go back
right.
really quick to probiotics because I get this question a lot. Should I be on a probiotic all the time? Should I? And my first thing for me being on the nutrition side is, do you know what foods you eat that are prebiotic and probiotic foods? And a lot of
Hmm.
people have no clue that food even has that in it. And so that's where I like to educate, because food first. For me, it's always food first, then supplements, then,
Yes.
medication and things like that. But if are eating mostly a whole food, nutrient dense variety during the week or during, all the months, and you seasonally change out your vegetables and you change out your fruits to what is in season, because there is reasons that some things are not in season all year long. It's because other things should be. And so, but I think with our conventional type of grocery, it's well, I can get this all year long, so why wouldn't I eat it? And it's okay to eat it, but it's like, learn, educate yourself. What vegetables are good for fall? What are good for spring? What are good for summer? And take advantage of those that are freshly, not freshly, but that are in season that time of year. Because again,
Natural.
natural,
Yeah.
thank you. Naturally, there's reasons that things are grown when they're grown. So back to the probiotic, it's, yes, I think taking it at, fall to prep your body, that and vitamin D and fish oil, because those things do help you from getting some of the common stuff that happens during these couple of months, when people go back to school, when the weather's changing, when you're, eating, for some people, eating excess sugar because you're getting into the holidays and all of that, and you're running your immune system down basically. So to boost it a little bit, I'm totally fine with. But again, just knowing what you're eating and putting in your body and why and how it's good for you is super important.
Absolutely. So in Chinese medicine, every herb has an energetic. So it's either going to be slightly warming or hot, slightly cooling or cold, or it'll be neutral as far as the temperature. It will be moistening or drying, not all of them, but they all have these different energetics and specific parts of the body and systems that they will treat. Foods are the exact same way. Every single food has an energetic. So really we should be treating people through food, but and you're right, it goes right back down to what's in season at that time. We associate every system with a color, and as simple and like kind of underwhelming as that is, we know that like red foods are really good for the heart. So think about beets, right? And think about how you've got all of those great B vitamins, right? You're going to have the niacin with it. It really, really helps with blood flow. Um, Watermelon is one of the coldest things, right? And it's so much yin, it's so much water, right? Actual moisture. So it's a wonderful thing to eat in the summer when we're
Right.
addressing the heart system, because we don't want that to get too hot. And that's something that's just going to be full of electrolytes and help to kind of keep you from getting dehydrated. This time of year in the fall, we love things that are white. Think onions, garlic, we also think apples and pears. Anything that's white on the inside is going to be really, really good for keeping the skin moist, keeping the lungs moist, and the lungs need to stay very moist so they can stay very pliable, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
They can expand and contract how they need to. So I think it's just fascinating, but you can get very specific with food cures in Chinese medicine, and some of them are rather gross. They really are. But this time of year, I'm constantly recommending that people get organic liver, like a little, 2 or 3 little organic chicken livers is great. And cook it up with some onions and garlic as much as you need to be able to eat the liver if that's not your thing, because it builds the blood and it helps balance liver. So think like building the blood so you're not anemic and moving the chi. And right now, that's just a thing that kind of, as we enter spring and as we enter fall, there can be hiccups for people in those systems. So no one wants to eat my
Okay, so
liver.
you know that most people just were like, absolutely not. I am not going to eat
Absolutely
liver. I don't care what it says or what it does. Um,
not. Right.
so as an alternative to somebody who just cannot, absolutely cannot, and not that anybody cannot, but will not, give that a go. There are like some liver that is made into, somehow they're made into a, I guess it's a supplement, but it's supposed to be a whole food supplement. So it's really just,
Needed liver.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what is your thought on that? If you're just someone who's never going to, absolutely never going to even attempt to stomach real
That
liver.
can be a very good way to build up iron if you're anemic. Just to, throw out this disclaimer, but men tend to not be anemic and probably shouldn't be supplementing with iron. I know a lot of men that I think correlate like the phrase pumping iron with needing iron, and they tend not to need iron. So be careful not to build too much of that up in your system. But women, especially during their, years where they're menstruating, tend to be deficient. So if you have a very pale tongue and very pale lips and, the dark circles under your eyes and you're just constantly exhausted, there's a good chance you're anemic. Using something like that's kind of fantastic. In my opinion, the herbs that are in our materia medica do contain a lot of animal products. We don't use them as much nowadays, and many of them are no longer legal to use. But like, I'm not going to be using tiger bone, but it is usually those are the herbs that are going to be the most powerful, are the animal products. So if you are anemic, the fastest way to build up the blood is going to be through animal sources of protein, right? If that's not something you're comfortable with, or you don't stomach meat well or whatnot, then yeah, I think it's a fantastic way to take iron or build iron, and much easier on the system than just tablets of iron. So
Yes.
there's lots of options, and it's all very fascinating, but I do like your idea of starting with food. So many people come and they don't feel well, and it's like, do you eat vegetables? Are you drinking water?
It's very basic things, but unfortunately, in our conventional world and our fast paced, not thinking about myself, I'm on the go 24/7. I never stop to actually think. The basics are really needed. And I keep going back to like in high school, all schools, elementary, middle, high school, college, you should be required to take classes about your own health because you're the only person that can understand yourself and what you need and really learn to listen and be intuitive to what your body is saying to you. But that's never considered, an option unless you're going into the health field. And even still, when you go into the health field, half the time it's not that type of, intuition type things. And I just feel like there's such a disservice, especially, when we talk about mental health and wellness. And it's like, I'm not against history, I'm not against science, I'm not against those subjects, but it's like, what do those mean to somebody who are not taking care of themselves properly? What is that learning doing for them when they're over here just barely surviving? So I just feel like we really need to like revamp our mindset around how we're educating our kids, and for what reasons. Because I think that's how we're going to make change, is by, teaching and having people experience things.
And to start that when they're young, right? To form those healthy habits, but also just um, to teach people how to check in with themselves, to teach
Yes.
people to recognize basically anything that does not seem right is a symptom of something,
Yes.
and to have that like addressed sooner rather than later.
Yes.
It's so important. When my daughter was little, she had one of those like bento boxes. I forget what it was called, Planet Box. It was super cool. Little metal box she took to school for her lunch every day. And so she would always prepare her lunch. I was in there with her, kind of overseeing, but that was important. I needed to know she was going to enjoy eating it and actually eat it, right? So what she craved that day went in the box. But we had a section in our fridge that was marked protein. We had a section in our fridge that was marked healthy fats. We had a section in our fridge that was marked vegetables. And then we had a section in our fridge that was marked carbs, and carbs are so important for women, especially at the end of the month before their period comes, that fourth phase or that fourth week of your cycle. We need more carbs as our body is building more progesterone. It's very carb dependent. There, you know, I am I think sugar is terrible. I think things are highly over processed. And I do think that most Americans, myself included, consume far too many carbs relative to the other stuff that we should be incorporating. So I just try to teach her early on what is what, so she can start to learn how to have that balance. And then she'll tell me now, like, Mom, I really crave protein after my cycle. Or, Mom, like, I'm really craving fat right now. Like, what is that about? And in Chinese medicine too, everything correlates with something that is diagnostically useful, which is why I love it. So every flavor correlates with the system. So if you always crave sweets, you might need more progesterone. You might need more carbs, because for us, that indicates that your spleen system is deficient. If you're always craving salty, that's more kidney adrenals, right? And that system, it links to the winter, but it also links to water. That's the water element, and everything salty and full of iodine and, all this great stuff, the trace minerals, is coming from the sea, right? So I just think it's really neat to listen to your body and listen to those cravings. But then if you're feeling the need for something sweet, have a sweet potato, have healthy carbs to nourish that, right? Rather than like the instant gratification of just the candy bar. Or if you want, like my Achilles heel, oh my gosh, I love corn tortilla chips so much. I could eat a bag of them in one sitting. So I just don't buy them anymore. But if you want the salt, you need to get real salt and salt your food with real salt, or you try some seaweed. I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but try miso soup. Do something that brings in that healthy form of salt rather than our go-to whatever's
Awesome.
quick and easy when we're tired.
With our kids, teaching them how to create a balanced plate, teaching them what that looks like, teaching them not to be afraid of carbs and fat just because, so and so says that they're on a keto or not doing any carbs for, it's like our bodies need certain things. But one of the things you said about the cycle for people who still have a cycle or have teens who have a cycle, there are 4 phases. And so again, something we don't really learn about. And in those 4 phases, different foods are good for each of the phases because it links to some of the hormones, or, and you're saying some of the Chinese or the particular points and things like that. So can you talk just a little bit about the cycle part of food? Right, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but
You
like,
mean as far as a woman's menstrual cycle? Is
yes,
that what you're asking?
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So how would I think of that in terms of food
Because you were
though?
saying like in the 4th week, you need more
Hmm.
carbs because that helps with progesterone. So if you're someone who has depleted yourself of all carbs, when you get to week 4 of your cycle, you're not going to be feeling good, and your body's not going to be able to do its real job properly because you're withholding what it actually needs.
Your hormones will over time get out of balance for sure. Um, and I just full disclaimer, I love keto diets. I absolutely do, especially the healthier fats and lower fat ones. But they are an imbalanced diet, and the imbalance, like if we have too much weight and we want to lose weight, that's a healthy way to do it, but you need an imbalanced state to lose weight. As far as the cycle goes, so in the first week of the cycle, when you're actually menstruating, we really want movement, right? We want everything to move freely and be fully expelled from the body. So we need a little bit more activity. And a lot of times, if women aren't feeling good during that part of the cycle, just a little bit more exercise can really help with their mood. It can help with their aches and pains. Don't push yourself so hard that you deplete yourself. Right after the cycle, so the second phase or the second week, if you're on a 28-day-ish cycle, that's going to be when you want to rebuild the blood. So that, as far as herbal medicine would go, that's when I would be nourishing and tonifying the blood and the yin, which they're concepts we don't have to dive into as far as yin and yang, but just think everything that is literally going to build blood in terms of like keeping you from being anemic. So protein, iron, but then also really hydrating and really making sure that you're getting healthy fats, things that are going to kind of moisten you, right? Because we also become drier over time. You see that with as we get older and estrogen declines, right? We just become hotter and drier. Living
Mm-hmm.
in the desert, see it all the time. So the third week of the cycle is all about ovulation. Again, that's more of a moving time. So maybe less building, more movement to help with ovulation. We do need a little bit more progesterone at that time too. And then, the fourth week of the cycle, really listen to your body. It will tell you what you want. But if you're someone that struggles with PMS, you know that you get cravings for things during that time of the month, right? And if you're craving sweets, again, your body wants healthy carbs, but that's why you're having that craving. So at that point in the cycle, we're building again, right? Let's say you conceive. So at this point, you're building up all of this progesterone. So if you don't conceive, then when you start your menses, then you start shedding and things start moving again. But that last week, it's important that we're building things up. And especially because keto's been so popular and intermittent fasting, which I also love, is so popular right now. The fourth week of your cycle is probably the only time I'm not a big fan of longer fasts. If you're doing like a 16-hour window or a 20-hour fasting and 4-hour eating window, that's fine. But if you're doing something that's like 24 plus hours, be really, really careful that last week of the month. That's more appropriate. Like the first week when you're menstruating would be a great time to do a slightly longer fast. But yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. And I think it's good for people to hear how we can and we should do things differently within a cycle, and why, and it is important to understand that, again, something we're not really educated on prior to, in the fourth grade you get a little movie, in the fifth grade you get a little movie, whatever, but you're not really being educated on how to best be your best self during the month by taking care of yourself, by doing certain things each week to make sure that you're setting your body up for the best environment that it needs. So again, I think it's important just to put that information out there. And if you're someone, again, who has, a period and struggles, this might be something to look into, which is the phases and what you can do, each week. And again, movement, I think, is big. You said that in 2 different weeks. She's not saying go out and kill yourself and do, a marathon, but physically making sure that you're understanding and more present during those weeks to make sure that you're actually getting up and physically moving your body. That could be a walk in the neighborhood. It could be a little bit of weight training. It could be whatever brings you joy, and again, we forget that movement can be fun. And if you used to like to ride a bike, go ride a bike. It's bringing it back to things that bring you joy, because then you'll want to move more. If it's a treacherous, thing that you just have on your to-do list that you have to check off, you're not going to get the same benefits as if you really looked forward to it, I guess.
Right. We're so go that we don't understand like cause and effect anymore, because we're not taking the time to stop and think about, well, what just happened? And so I think it's wild that so many of my clients have a hard time answering questions for me about like what I think are relatively simple questions, or if I'm not very clear with how I'm phrasing it, I will get very strange answers, because like if you ask someone who has been taking Ambien for the last 5 years how they sleep, they tell you they sleep really well.
Right.
Unless you know they're taking Ambien, but it's like, well, how would you sleep without the Ambien? They're like, I'm never going to try that again because it was miserable. I was a zombie and I hated it. I'm like, okay, so we might work on sleep,
Right.
But
which sleep's a big one. And that, again, that goes back to self-care. It goes back to how do you set your nights up? How do you set your mornings up? What is your screen time? When do you get light in your eyes? I mean, and again, that's educating people. Why do we need to get up and look at the sun? Like, why do I need to have light, natural sunlight versus just hopping on my computer or getting on my phone or scrolling or whatever? Well, there is reasons there, it helps to make that has to do with your cortisol, and in very simple terms, it helps to basically make the melatonin that you're going to need at night to go to sleep and stay asleep. And so if you're not having a good morning routine and you're just literally go and you're not present in the morning doing the things that you need to set yourself up for the night, that's one of the things that may be causing you not to have as good of sleep. If you're on your screen until you drop off to sleep, your brain's on fire. I mean, it's literally on fire. You need to give your brain a break. And I've experimented to kind of just see now that I'm more aware. And it is very interesting being on your phone and drifting off to sleep. For me, it's almost like there's a cloud.
Mm.
like when I'm trying to go to sleep and when I've taken the time not to have my phone near me, maybe done some reading or, whatever it is, I drift off very differently. Like I don't have that, I call it a cloud, but it's like a heavy feeling almost because I just feel like my brain is, I don't know, either inflamed or like on fire, or I don't know what it's doing, but it's definitely interesting to see the differences.
For
So
sure.
okay, I always end. First of all, I've loved this conversation. I think it was beneficial for all listeners to have a little better understanding of what acupuncture is and then what it can do for you. And I encourage everybody to, if you're going through something, to take a second to think about how maybe acupuncture could benefit you. And
Oh,
okay, so if you live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, then please look up Dr. Jennifer Harris because obviously you can tell through this conversation she knows what she's doing. If you're not, then what are some things that people should look at when they're looking into finding an acupuncturist? Because I have to imagine they're not all created equal. So,
absolutely, absolutely. And I would say if you've tried acupuncture once and it didn't work for you or you didn't resonate with that acupuncturist, try somebody else. Just give it another shot because you really do need to find somebody that you're comfortable with and that you like their style. Um, That depends on a lot of things. There are some great options for community acupuncture if the price point or, with the frequency that you want to go is going to be expensive. Community acupuncture can be wonderful. So people should just know that there is an option where you can do acupuncture in a group setting and it's usually very, very peaceful and very nice. Most acupuncturists just offer one-to-one appointments, and if you're looking specifically to work or with issues regarding fertility or women's health specifically, it can be wonderful to look for a practitioner through the ABORM website. It's ABORM. It's the American Board of Acupuncture for Reproductive Medicine.
I'll drop it in the show notes. If anybody's driving, don't try to write it down, but I'll drop it in the show notes so that you'll have that resource to look up. Really quick, because you did mention women's health and all of that. Just in a brief couple of statements, what can acupuncture do for somebody who's in perimenopause or menopause? What are some benefits that people can learn and maybe then go try to try to get some of their symptoms quieted?
Oh, well, it can just be so helpful for making that transition easier. I honestly think transitions are where life gets hard, right? Whether it's a physical transition, right? Or grieving the loss of someone, or moving, changing jobs, right? Like those are the periods where we grow and we stretch, but they're uncomfortable. And that's one of the places where acupuncture can be really, really helpful, right? Just that reset during that time. So, as far as perimenopause and menopause, I will not say all of your hot flashes and night sweats will go away completely and your brain fog will be 100% better right away, but it really does seem to speed up that process so that it's just shorter and less intense. And
And who doesn't want that?
yeah, seriously, it looks extremely uncomfortable. I know I'm not far away, so but I've worked with enough people that I've been actually really surprised, pleasantly surprised at how well it's helped with hot flashes and night sweats in particular without the use of any supplements or herbal medicine.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay, great. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So, if you're somebody who's going through perimenopause or menopause, or maybe you're postmenopausal at this point, again, this is just another thing that acupuncture might be something you want to delve into a little bit. So, before we end, I always ask my guests for three, two, three, whatever you feel that comes to your heart, things that you do on a daily basis to help you have the most balanced and healthy lifestyle. Doesn't have to be acupuncture related, doesn't have to be medicine related, it could be a weighted blanket. So just anything in general that really speaks to you.
I take time to pause and have quiet at least once a day by myself. because I'm go, 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 and I'm always interacting with other people. So I really enjoy, even if it's just 10 minutes, it does not have to be, you don't have to overthink it. It does not have to be like meditation if that's not easy for you, but just a moment of quiet where you try to just not think, right?
Get a few good
Um,
breaths in.
yes, yes. I like to always have something that I'm doing that piques my interest and feels creative.
Oh, I
I
love
think
that.
sometimes we don't make enough time for that. So, whatever that is, and again, it doesn't have to be a big time consuming part of your day, but to just have a moment where even if you're just planning your next creative thing, right? Planning your next travel or whatever, just to have that moment where it's not about everybody else, right? It's what brings you joy. Um, and let's see. Morning routines are really, really helpful. When I stop doing them for a couple weeks, man, does everything in life just get a little bit harder. So trying to get up like half an hour earlier than you need to so that you can just do all of those things and set the intention, set the tone for your day. That can be really nice.
I resonate with everything that you say, and I find it so interesting that the three things that came to your mind are what I call primary foods. It's all the things that feed you off of your plate, because again, when those are out of balance, secondary food, whatever you're eating, whatever your goals are in that particular realm, will not come to fruition as easily when you're not feeling all the things off, on the primary side. So creativity is such an interesting one, and I loved how you brought creativity into it bringing you joy, because joy is in itself one of the primary foods. And where do you find joy? But I think also people look at creativity as, well, I don't paint and I don't draw and I'm not creative. But creative could be coming up with a meal, that, a presentation for a meal. It could be making a charcuterie board. It could be organizing a closet. It could be starting a podcast. It doesn't have to be anything specifically around just the arts. So it's just how
Yeah.
you view whatever it is creatively that you want to do. And I love that you take time, like you said, not always just doing it, but even coming up with the idea. Travel is great. It's like, if you just took 10 minutes a day and you like picked a new place that you might want to travel, even if it's not today or next week, that might give you the joy that you're looking for to keep you going, to get to that point. So I love your three non-negotiables. I think those are spot on for what a lot of people want to do, but maybe don't do, or could benefit, from having in their life. So thank you for sharing those.
Yeah.
Again, Jennifer, you've been a wealth of information. I loved our conversation and how it kind of spun into a bunch of different things, but I think it's all very relevant and necessary to be heard. I will drop all of Jennifer's information in the show notes. So if you are interested in getting to know her a little bit more, she is starting a podcast. So once that comes out, you guys can hop on and start listening, because I'm sure she's going to have amazing solo episodes and guest episodes to really share some more of her wonderful knowledge with us. So thank you so much for tuning in today. And until next time, I hope you guys have a great day. Bye. I really enjoyed that episode so much. I hope you guys did too. Learning about acupuncture and actually what it does and how it works is truly something that is very fascinating to me, because it's not something that I know a ton about. So I appreciated Dr. Harris educating us and kind of giving us little things that we might be able to use acupuncture for. And one of the things that I wanted just to bring to light is the women's health part of it. Whether you have your period, whether you are in perimenopause, menopause, or post, this is definitely a tool that you can put into your tool belt to try and help and manage the symptoms a little bit better. So some of the main takeaways, though, that I wanted to leave you guys with are: number one, acupuncture is a holistic approach to healing that aims to bring balance to the body's energy systems. It can be effective in addressing a wide range of health issues, from physical pain to mental health concerns to women's health too. Number two, each person has a unique constitution, which is their baseline state of health and energy. Chinese medicine recognizes that different people have different constitutions and treatment is tailored to address individual imbalances. So it's never a one-size-fits-all. Number 3, stress can have a significant impact on your health, and Chinese medicine recognizes its role in various health issues. Managing stress through practices like acupuncture, meditation, and lifestyle adjustments is essential for overall well-being. Number 4, acupuncture can be particularly beneficial for women during different phases of their reproductive lives, including menstruation, perimenopause, and menopause. It can help alleviate symptoms such as abnormal imbalances, mood swings, and discomfort. And lastly, everyone's body and needs are different and unique, so it's essential to work with a health care practitioner who understands your individual constitution and makeup and can tailor treatments and recommendations accordingly. Remember, this is all education through this podcast. It is just to bring things to light. If you are not feeling well, if you need a doctor's interventions, just wanting you to remember not just looking at the Western side of things, but also looking at some of the Eastern modalities to kind of marry them up so that you get the most effective treatment for yourself. I hope that, again, you guys can take 1 or 2 little things away from this episode that you can maybe create them into your 1% shifts. I know I'm going to be going back to acupuncture very soon, as well as getting a few massages that I've been kind of holding off on just for lack of being busy, or for not the lack of being busy, but because I've been busy, I've been lacking in those areas. So anyways, I hope that you guys found something, that you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks for tuning in today. I loved being here with you. I hope that you got something from today's episode. I'd love to hear what resonated with you. Drop a comment below, and if you feel led to, download the episode and share it with someone you love that needs to hear this message. As we continue to spread the goodness of this podcast, I'd love for you to help us by leaving a review on Apple Podcast or a rate on Spotify. As we increase listeners, we will come up more often when women are searching for podcasts to listen to. To stay connected with me, you can check out my social media pages at Live Life Balanced with Robin. You can check out my website at livelifebalancedwithrobin.com. You can book a discovery call. And if you're looking for a way to get started right now, you can opt in for my new quick guide for the empty nester refresh. You can join my waitlist for my new course, It's Your Time, which is going to be launching soon, which I'm super excited about. And as always, thank you for letting me be part of your day. It truly means a lot that you're allowing me to be on your wellness journey with you. Until next time, find peace, love, and light by breathing, being present, and allowing for all possibilities to happen.